الله أكبر الله أكبر حي على الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر.
I rise to my highest heights, giving the highest of praise to the great God of the universe, Allah, and the highest of honors to his holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, Islam. I'd like to extend those honors to the harbinger, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who did warn and stir up the nations, and who, through purity, paved the way through, for love made manifest, which is our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali.
Islam.
I'd like to extend honors to the Moorish Science Temple of America, Temple number 19, the office of the Grand Governor, the office of the Lieutenant Grand Governor, the office of the Chairman, the office of the Secretary, all the sheiks, L's and Bays and the Groves, and all of our visitors that are visiting with us tonight. Islam.
Islam.
I know I say this all the time, and I'm a little nervous, but once again, the sheik comes and gives my demonstration, so we'll just we'll go with it. So, he spoke about the higher self and the lower self, and how empires fall, and how our empire fell, and who the true enemy is, and it just falls in line with what Allah put on my heart, tonight. Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 12 reads, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." So, the sheik is right. Who is the real enemy? Of course, there are enemies outside of us. There's, what you want to call a devil, Lucifer, devil, Satan, dragon, beast that's going to and fro the earth. What did the higher self say to the lower self?
Where are you going, Satan?
Where are you going, Satan? All right. But not only was that talking about external, but it's talking about internal. The higher self and the lower self. Spiritual wickedness. Those high places, not necessarily meaning Capitol Hill or whatever wherever the administration is. But that high place could be inside of you, inside of your temple, inside of your pineal gland. What's going on inside of you? How are we, and this goes past my ears, how are we going to war with that higher and lower self? The sheik talked about, the Grand Governor talked about that jihad and that spiritual battle, but it's not a flesh and blood battle. It's a battle within. So, the Grand Governor last week, he gave a measure on the story of the Moors in Spain, and something told me just to pick it up. And what he said was exactly, what the books, he's a master scholar, we all know that. But this says, this is by Stanley Lane Poole, but this is the back of the book. "The decline and fall of the Moorish Empire was a great setback to modern civilization. Had this great African culture been able to survive, the world would have been 500 years more advanced than it is today. The story of the Moors in Spain is a chronicle of splendor and tragedy, and no one has told the story better than Stanley Lane Poole." I mean, I beg to differ, but "All serious students of history should read this book. It is of special value to students of African history who should be glad that this historical classic is now back in print." So earlier, the sheik talked about empires falling and internal fighting amongst Moors. And he wasn't just saying this. All right, this is documented. So there's a book. It's called "The Discovery of America" by Columbus, as an outline to the conquest of the Moors in Spain. All right, so I'm just going to go through it a little bit and just kind of highlight on some of the demonstration that the sheet was given, it'll make it real to us. Upon the Spanish troops rallying to defend Alhama from being reconquered, the news reaching King Ferdinand he made immediate preparations and hastened on to take charge of the army, and Isabella followed after him and soon joined him at Cordoba. Ferdinand and Isabella had long awaited a pretext for inaugurating a Christian war of extermination against the Mohammedan Moors and the wealthy Jews residing in the Moorish kingdom. The marriage of Ferdinand and Isabella consolidated Spanish empire and destroyed the factions which enabled them to bring into the field of war the troops of Castile and Aragon and their dependencies for prosecution of their Christian faith. So here we start off by seeing that, okay, so the European nations, in order to beat us, the first thing they had to do was what? They had to unite.
Right.
All right? So they had unity amongst themselves. So let's get into some of what was going on amongst our ancestors. And this is just a description, of what was going on. The palaces, mosques, and other private and public buildings were finished with stone. The floors were laid in mosaic and variegated marbles. The side walls were of porcelain tiles laid in various colors, ornamented with medallions of fruits, flowers, and heraldic devices. If you know anything about like heraldry, that's coats of arms and things like that. So look up the Book of Crests, and it'll show in England some of the heraldry that our ancestors displayed. So it's really a sight to see. They were also stuccoed and ornamented with arabesques of the most elegant and intricate designs, characteristic of this cultivated and refined Mohammedan people. The ceilings were decorated in fretwork and panels and heavy molded cornices painted in white and gold and frescoed in bright and beautiful colors. The architecture of the whole city was exquisite and refined. The beauties of Granada were likened unto a marble vase of pure gems overflowing with dewdrops sparkling in the rays of the morning sun. The Moors were a cultivated people living in Asiatic luxury. Probably knew what he was talking about, didn't he? I mean, there were different nations here at that time. You had, I demonstrated, you had Moors, people of Moorish descent, Mohammedan religion, Mohammedan faith. You also had, those Jews, or you had, we call them like today, Yehuda Moors, all right? Pardon self, I lost my place. Take your time. Asiatic luxury. Within an atmosphere of a scholarly attainment and exquisite refinement, speaking the highest order of mellow and entrancing Arabic, extremely fond of dress and possessing an enduring passion for ornaments. The armor of the Moorish cavaliers was encrusted with gold and silver, chaste and elegant designs. The sheaths of the scimitars were richly enameled, and the blades of Damascus steel were elaborately emblazoned, and their belts were inlaid with ornamental figures in enamel. The Arabian steeds of the Moorish chivalry were gorgeously, and this print is bad, caparisoned in rich velvets of various colors, ornamented with gold and silver and interwoven with silken braid. The women of Granada lived in the height of luxury and magnificence. They wore anklets, bracelets, earrings, and girdles of gold, wrought with exquisite art and delicacy, studded with diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and other precious gems. Their long and luxuriant hair flowed in tresses beautifully decorated with precious stones, neatly set in golden filigree. Their features were of classic mold. They were finely formed and fully developed, and their physical beauty was entrancing. They were graceful in their manners, fascinating in their conversation, and their bright, sparkling eyes and teeth of pearly whiteness glittered through ruby lips, gave to their countenances an expression of sweet, sympathetic, and enduring love. All right? So here, we were living in luxury at that time. All right? European nations, they had to unite. Ferdinand and Isabella, the whole goal was to take over.
That's right.
All right, the whole goal was to conquer the Moors. All right, so they had to unite. They did that. They united by marriage, so that way they had to unite. The Grand Governor gave a demonstration last week about, you know, how when you get married and you have those children, you look at those children, how can you still have hate in your heart after that? All right, so that's what, and they learned this from us. All right, they watched the Moors. They watched and wrote everything down, and they wanted to imitate what the Moors had going on. The Moors and Spaniards took great delight in waging partisan war upon each other. The attack made by Abul Hassan, December 26, 1481, upon the fortress of Zahara and the taking of its people prisoners resulted in the Marquis of Cadiz storming and taking at the dead of night the Moorish castle and city of Alhama. All right, so we're going to fast forward here, and we're getting into Christopher Columbus. On his arrival at Cordoba, he found the Queen Isabella, surrounded by prelates and officers of the army so engaged that she could not give him an audience, and he became the guest of Alonso de Quintanilla. So at this time, what Columbus was attempting to do, he wanted to get funding to sail across the water because of what he heard. But the Queen wasn't trying to hear him because she was too busy in a battle trying to beat the Moors. At about this time, the elder Sultana Aitza became very jealous of Zoraya, or the morning star, the young and favorite sultana of the king, Abul Hassan, fearing lest her son, Boabdallah, would be superseded by the offspring of Zoraya. So here's where some of those internal battles that the Sheikh was referring to earlier begin to happen. It started happening, between a family. Basically two sisters wanting their sons to be, the heir to the throne. All right. The ill feeling existing between the sultanas led to the formation of two factions and terminated in a rebellion during which the streets of Granada flowed with the blood of the Moors. Ferdinand encouraged the feud on behalf of Aitza, I'm probably pronouncing this wrong, I don't know if you know. And Abul Hassan and his young family were expelled from Granada, and Boabdallah was proclaimed king. And Boabdil, but it's saying, we've heard of Boabdil, we give that demonstration here. Large numbers of troops were now summoned to the seat of war, and vigorous preparations were made for the prosecution of the same. And owing to the internal feuds of the Moors, and it's calling our brother an imbecile here, but imbecility of Boabdallah, Ferdinand was enabled to attack their castles one by one, and by the use of gunpowder and heavy bombards, the Moorish castles, cities, and Vegas fell to the conquering Spaniards. Again, the Sheikh, he came, I guess he just gave that introduction to this because he hit it spot on. Sometimes we see these internal battles today, sisters against sisters, brothers against brothers, over who knows what. But without unity, how can we get back our vast estate that the prophet talks about and that the chairman mentioned earlier? All right, it takes unity. See, here, we got away from the 5 highest principles known to man. Love, truth, peace, and freedom were violated. And justice took its course. And at that time, even, you read this book, we had help from Slavs. All right?
That's
slave Slavs. So, the story really comes together when you study. So I give honors, to the prophet and to this temple for, just pushing me to just kind of open up my mind to some of these things. So how did we get here today? All right. I have to draw from the prophet, the holy prophet Noble Drew Ali, a divine warning by the prophet for the nations. And I won't read the whole thing because I, just want to line some other things up, but just follow along with me. A divine warning by the prophet for the nations. The citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are all of one family bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables and are subject to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them. And it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the names and principles that delude to slavery. Marks were put upon us in 1774, all right, that contributed to the conditions that our people are in today. I, the prophet, was prepared by the great God Allah to warn my people to repent from their sinful ways and go back to the state of mind to their forefathers' divine and national principles, that they will be law-abiders and receive their divine rights as citizens according to the free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings. They are to claim their own free national name and religion. There's but one issue for them to be recognized by this government and of the earth, and it comes only through the connection of the Moorish divine national movement, which is incorporated in this government and recognized by all other nations of the world. And through it, they and their children can receive their divine rights, unmolested by other citizens, that they can cast a free national ballot at the polls under the free national constitution of the state's government and not under a granted privilege that has been the existing condition for many generations. So here we see that the prophet, he talks about the rights under the state's government, because we know that granted privileges come under the 14th and 15th Amendment. But if you have your nationality and your divine, you have your name, free national name and religion, you have your divine rights. I'm going to fast forward because there's some, for the sake of time, because there's some other things I'd like to demonstrate before I yield. The word Negro deludes in the Latin language to the word, the N-word, the same as the word color deludes to anything that is painted, varnished, and dyed. And every nation must bear a national descent name of their forefathers, because honoring thy fathers and thy mothers, your days will be lengthened upon the earth. These names have never been recognized by any true American citizens of this day. Through your free national name, you are known and recognized by all nations of the earth that are recognized by said national government in which they live. The 14th and 15th Amendments brought the North and South in unit, placing the Southerners, who were at that time without power, with the constitutional body of power. And at that time, since 1865, the free national constitutional law, free national constitutional law that was enforced since 1774 declared all men equal and free. And if all men are declared by the free national constitution to be free and equal, since that constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendments for the salvation of our people and citizens. So the prophet talks about, he referenced the free national, the constitution since 1774 that declared all men equal and free. So we've all heard of the First Continental Congress. So in 1774, October the 14th, there's a document called Declaration and Resolves. All right? This document talks about all men being equal and free. This is a part of our Constitution. How many of us know what that is? Declarations and Resolves.
Come on now.
That's part of our Constitution. Something else called the Articles of Confederation. I'll go over here. All right, and this all happened in Carpenter's Hall. We know it happened in Carpenter's Hall. So that's when those marks were placed upon us. All right, the marks Negro, black, and colored. But on October 20th, 1774, you have the Articles of Confederation, which talked about the rights of freedmen. This was written in response to the acts by the British, the intolerable acts. Intolerable acts. All right. Articles of Confederation talked about the rights of freemen. All right. That's a part of our Constitution. What came next? Anybody know? We're at 1774, right? Declaration of Independence. Y'all remember what year, right?
1776.
All right. I mean, we know this is a document to get the Europeans free from Britain and all that stuff. We know that. But this is also our document. All right. All men are created equal. All men are created equal. Now, when you talk to a Moor, and you throw that word men out, that's inclusive of the sisters.
Boys are men.
Right.
You working, bro. You working.
Upright, independent, and fearless. Islam chief?
Indeed.
All right. Created equal. Who made you?
Allah.
Who was Allah?
Allah is the Father of the universe.
Can we see him?
No.
Where's the nearest place we can meet him?
In the heart.
Islam. I love this place. All right. So, next you have the Articles of Confederation. And I know I'm missing some stuff. I mean,
Great time. Great time.
I think this was 1881.
17.
See?
All's well. Got your back, man.
Make sure I put 17 in front of everything else. 1781. All right. So the Articles of Confederation was a guide to maintain national sovereignty. I'll just say that. Jumble all up together because you know it ain't spelled right. You know what I'm saying? So, we got one here. We're gonna come back to that one. We're gonna come back to that one. In 1790, there was something called the Naturalization Act. All right? This granted citizenship to free white persons who were immigrants. All right? So, we know what the Black's Law says about it and all that. All right? But basically, if you had a nationality, all right, you were granted citizenship, and it didn't include Caucasian races, but that's why they took on the name free white persons. It's all about citizenship, all right? It's all about divine rights and citizens. 1791. That's where we have the Constitution, as we know today, all right? And I know we have the Northwest Ordinance and a myriad of other documents that are our Constitution, but the prophet basically was demonstrating that we go further than 1791. We go back further than the 14th and 15th Amendments. All right? We go back further than that. All of this is our Constitution. All right? Who are the parties to this treaty, 1783? Anybody know? United States. We know it was United States and Great Britain. But who else?
The Moors?
Wasn't the Moors. We will get there. The Pope. Okay? The parties to this treaty were the United States, Great Britain, and the Pope. So in order for you to have a nation, you have to be, the prophet talks about being what? Recognized by other nations. All right? I missed another very important date too. Who was the first nation to recognize the United States as a nation?
Morocco.
All right, Morocco. All right, and that was by way of we opened up our ports for their ships. Here we have the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. Which, if you look at the Sixth Amendment, it says that treaties are the law of the land. I mean, if you read the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, I mean, it looks like it's maritime law. All right? But it's also the law of the land. Everything here is the law of the land. Everything here is your Constitution. All right? So, we must unite under one nation. The prophet gave us everything that it takes to save a nation, and we need to go out and save ourselves.
Demonstrate law.
Now, he talked about a nation state earlier. The prophet already set that up for us.
Islam.
Come on now.
He already gave us the directions. He already gave us the instructions. All right? He told us that he was going to leave the Europeans in place long enough for us to, learn government. All right? So, what do we do until then? There's the Moorish Divine and National Movement. There's the Moorish Science Temple of America. There's learning to love instead of hate.
Demonstrate.
There's teaching the 5 highest principles known to man, which are love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. There's the upliftment of fallen humanity. And in imitating the prophet, we're teaching our brothers and sisters to be themselves. I know I threw a lot out at you, but that's what Allah put on my heart.
Praise God.
And are there any questions? All right. If you're still a Negro, black, and colored, proclaiming nationality, don't wait.
That's
All
all.
right. With that, I leave you as I came in peace.
Peace.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Hayya ala salah. Allahu Akbar.